Our Futures project is about how corruption in the government of Pakistan has created immense poverty. Brodie says, according to recent estimates, 2008, poverty in Pakistan by national standards concerned less than 20% of the population. However, after hitting this record low, poverty is on the rise again, estimated to be somewhere between 30 to 40%, depending on the source. Efforts to fight poverty have been ongoing since the 1970s, despite the poverty bomb of the 1990s due to corruption and poor government strategies that caused an increase in the number of poor. Other factors impacting the poverty level are the fast-growing population, which is seeing about a 1.6 increase each year, low education levels and productivity. Only 6% of children who graduate primary school go on to get a degree from a university, and natural disasters, including floods and earthquakes, which are costly to recover from. Natural disasters require a lot of resources to rebuild afterwards. Not only do they damage homes and businesses, but they also wipe out crops and increase the price of food. There are also the influences of wars and turmoil, which create an unsafe work environment, instability, and geographic factors such as erosion, deforestation, and use of agricultural chemicals. There are certain steps the government could take to help with many of these, but there's usually so much upheaval and corruption that the government is focused on other things rather than trying to improve the lives of Pakistan's impoverished citizens. Qureshi, Mustak, and Harani said, the government needs to make a comprehensive plan for the protection of the local fishing and farming communities, as well as the conservation of important environmental areas such as the wetlands. As Pakistan is frequently affected by natural disasters, it is crucial that an effective system of disaster risk reduction and risk mapping is in place to ensure that the extent of devastation and destruction is as little as possible. In 2014, Pakistan scored 126 out of 174 on the Corruption Perceptions Index published by Transparency International. They also stated, Pakistan has lost nearly $94 million in corruption. Tax evasion, corruption, and bad governance are among the reasons there is so much poverty in the country. Yusuf Raza Giani became the first head of state to be convicted while holding office and later disqualified on charges of loan defaulting. Ismail and Rizvi said, it is argued that democracy will reduce these barriers to poverty eradication through empowerment. However, this is not necessarily achieved, principally because the poor are excluded from access due to the lack of education, knowledge, opportunity, economic power, information, etc. The lethal combination of powerful personalities and weak institutions has resulted in the subversion of law, the deprivation of people's sovereignty, the lack of accountability, and a process which remains largely personal and informal and allows rulers to operate outside established institutional frameworks. Political parties do not hold elections for office. Decision-making is controlled by the powerful elite. Sovereignty is equated to powerful governments, not free citizens. Although great strides have been made, millions of Pakistanis remain vulnerable to falling into absolute poverty. An external shock, such as a natural disaster, could easily push them back into poverty. Efforts have been made to improve education and health, but results have fallen far short of what is needed. What is needed is sustainable and pro-poor growth, structural reforms to create jobs and growth, and social investment to raise growth. Rampant corruption threatens to undermine the flow of billions of dollars of investment and aid into the country. Combating corruption is one of the conditions of a $6.7 billion IMF aid program, and there are reports that major donors, such as the UK, are reconsidering their aid commitments in light of the country's persistent failure to combat corruption. Pakistan's energy sector has funds leached out of it, resulting in an energy crisis that is stunting the country's economic growth. Deep distrust of Pakistan's policy elite, and concerns over security have further eroded investor confidence. With an ailing economy, Pakistan's government can ill afford to allow these streams of finance to dry up. Our guess would be that poverty will continue to get worse in Pakistan if the government corruption doesn't get better. If the government isn't functioning properly and doesn't have the best interests of all its citizens at heart, not just the few elite members of its society, there is no hope for the poor to have a fighting chance of pulling themselves out of their circumstances. There is nobody willing to listen to them and show enough concern for their needs to take initiative to actively do something about it. Sure, Pakistan's government has put together programs to help the economy and reduce poverty before, but will they stick with it enough to make a difference?